So where I live, by the way, I'm Susan, and we're going to be doing like a bunch of videos. Where I live is where Kentucky, Tennessee, and Virginia meet. So I see a lot of political stuff going on in this region. And for those of you who don't know, this is kind of the Bible Belt. Even though people don't think that it's the Bible Belt, it's definitely the Bible Belt. Religion has a lot to do with the politics here, whether it's, you know, trans youth in schools. They're worried to death about uh, if we call somebody by one gender, somehow it's going to mess up all of the students. I don't understand that at all. But also abortion. Abortion is huge here, and it's been huge for the last 50 years. You know, when Roe versus Wade happened, that was in the 1970s, it hasn't really let up here about that. It's always been something that's been like an undercurrent, and it drives the politics. So what you have to think about is there's two different kind of scenarios going on with politics where we are. There's people who want to have access to abortions, and they don't necessarily mind that there's some restrictions on it, that there's some like boundaries, but then there's people who want to absolutely outlaw it 100% for no exceptions whatsoever. So it doesn't matter if somebody's raped, it doesn't matter if incest, it doesn't matter if there's deformities, it doesn't matter the health of the mother, it doesn't matter if the medical professionals think that the pregnancy should be terminated for probably thousands of reasons why a pregnancy could be terminated. They don't take that into consideration. What they think about is if for some reason that abortion goes forward, the people involved are all going to go to hell. Well, I don't believe that. I don't. And I always tell people, the way I think about it is this. You know, whether you're for or against abortion, think of it like somebody who's baking a cake. You know, if you bake a cake, first of all, you have to put the ingredients together and make a batter, correct? Okay. And even when you put that batter in a pan and you put it into an oven so it starts to actually like cook, it still looks like batter for a very long time before it starts looking like a cake. So whenever you have people say that we should have no abortion for any reason whatsoever, that's ridiculous. I'm not for, and most people are not for, killing babies. They're not for late-term abortions unless it's absolutely imperative for the health of the mother. But for you to have no exceptions whatsoever for rape, for incest, for the health of the mother, for the health of the, and let's be honest, in the very beginning, it's just a lump of cells. And then it becomes an embryo. And then it becomes a fetus. And then at the very end, it actually is a baby. It's not a baby in the very beginning. And that's where we kind of like get confused. You know, I've actually talked to people who are very, very, very pro-life, and they tell me that it's a baby from the very minute of conception. That's absolutely insane. It is. There is something that's growing there. There is some kind of thing that's developing, but you can't really necessarily call it a life until it actually like becomes more than it actually is in the very beginning. And in the very beginning, the first couple of months, there's not much more to it than a lump of like clay. And it's a lump of clay that's really kind of like cells. It's kind of like tissues, but it's not a baby. And it won't be a baby for several more months. So when you don't have any kind of option, what you're going to do is you're going to force women, especially young girls and people who are actually like lower income, to actually take on a burden that they can't afford to take on. And people act like, well, if these unwanted babies are born, somebody's going to adopt them. That's not true. We have so many kids that are in foster care today that no one will adopt. And there's nothing wrong with these kids. People want to adopt them because people are selfish. Most people that have kids want to have their own kids. They should adopt, you know. It's just like people who, you know, who donate organs, you know, upon their death. Everybody should donate their organs. It's like you don't need your organs anymore, you're dead. It's like there has to be common sense to this. We can't keep bringing children into the world if they're unwanted. And I'm sorry, many times when abortions happen, it's because it's an unwanted situation. If you're bringing that child into this environment, what you're doing is you're setting this child up to not have a family, because the chances of them actually being adopted is really small. It's very, very small. So if you have 100 chances of, 100 children being adopted, okay, there might be 10 of them that get adopted. The other 90% stay in a system of foster care, so they never really actually have any kind of stability. That's not fair to anybody. If you force the mother, and most of the time it is the mother that's going to have the child if she doesn't put it up for adoption, if you force her to have an unwanted expense that she can't afford, then you're going to keep her in poverty. She's never going to get to a better place that she can actually improve and become something more than she actually is. So that's the thing that's frustrating. Nobody wants to have people having abortions at the very end of pregnancy. And I will tell you that's really an anomaly. Probably less than 5% of abortions are in the last trimester. The majority of them are in the first trimester. So, the first 3 months, it's a lump of cells. And for us to pretend otherwise is really kind of like playing God. We're actually judging people for stuff that we don't need to be judging them for. Why do we think that it's necessary to have our religious beliefs put on somebody else? That's not what anybody should be doing with any faith. I don't care if you're Christian, I don't care if you're Buddhist, I don't care if you're Hindu, I don't care if you're pagan, I don't care if you're atheist, I don't care what your beliefs are. You shouldn't be forcing your beliefs on somebody else. The best way for you to know if your walk is right is for you to know that it's right. It's not for you to prove to everybody else that it's right. If you want to think that abortion's wrong, okay, you can think it. But if somebody else thinks that it's okay and thinks that it's fine within reason and within justification, then that is their right also. You can't take away some people's rights thinking that your rights are the only thing that matter. You can't do that. But that's where I live. I live where Kentucky, Tennessee, and Virginia meet, and it's a very conservative area. It is. And that has a lot to do with politics here. Like I said, for 50 years, they've been rehashing this. They've been demonizing women. They've been demonizing people who aren't protesting, that aren't throwing a fit. If the churches aren't calling the people whores and bastards and evildoers and all this other crap, then they're not doing the work of God. But I don't think that that's the work of God. I don't.